Welcome as you're joining. So it looks like we were having some technical difficulties. I apologize. We're going to go ahead and get started here since we are recording, and you'll receive a copy of that. So welcome everyone to the Leadership Hustle. Today's topic, we're going to be focusing on how the future is flexible. So how is it flexible? It really varies from place to place. I know from having conversations with different types of organizations, it looks different everywhere. So today we have a panel with some people that are going to be able to provide us some insights on what are some of the different places doing, because it is definitely one of the things that is very unique to the workplace, is how that flexibility is unique to every location. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and just do a little housekeeping. Also, we'll dive into the introduction for the panel. So for housekeeping purposes, go ahead for anyone that is on the Zoom. As you have questions, please go ahead and insert those into the chat, and Ashja is going to be taking care of that and will give me heads up as questions are coming through. Get transitioned over to our panel, our guests that are going to be with us today. We've got Ryan from Logier, we've got Liz from Medical Solutions, and we've got Mary from Oxbow Healthcare. So Ryan, if you could go ahead and get started, just tell us a little bit about what you get to do every day in your organization.
Thank you, Michelle. Like I said, my name is Ryan Boyd. I'm the Director of Human Resources here at Lozier Corporation. Lozier is the leading manufacturer of products used in stores, retailers, warehouses. So all that shelving, self-checkout, backroom shelving, everything that you see in a retailer, we manufacture. I've been with Lozier for 20 years in a variety of different roles, ranging from recruitment and the talent side to benefits to my current role as Director of HR, where I oversee our HR teams. Just a little bit about myself from a personal basis. I am originally from Omaha, and I have 4 children ranging from the ages of 16 to 16 months. So we have every range of emotion going through our house at any given time. So I know everyone on the call is very envious of that if you've had children. But thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ryan. Oh, you do have every emotion going on right now. You're probably like, how can I go to work to get away? No.
Yeah, I'm in the office every day. So
I couldn't imagine why at times. Okay, Liz, let's go ahead. If you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
Of course. Yeah. Hi, I'm Liz Hall, and I'm with Medical Solutions. So Medical Solutions is the 3rd largest healthcare recruitment company in the nation. So primarily nurses, but we also do allied health. And we are coming out of a crazy time with, we're still kind of in that post-COVID fog, I think, of the impact of our business. So I've been in the industry for 22 years. So I originally started at CNA Industries. I was there until 2019, and then we were acquired by Medical Solutions. And so my role with the company is Vice President of Talent Engagement. So that is a fork within the HR world. So I oversee culture and engagement, learning development, DEIB facilities, just a little bit of everything, but everything people. So I'm really fortunate that way. So we did go during COVID, we did go remote, and we stayed remote, and we are a hybrid work force all across the country. So we now have employees in all 50 states, and we have 7 offices across the United States. So from California to Florida and kind of in between. So we've got a blend. We actually have 3 buckets of employees. So we have employees that go into the office, employees that work from home and have that blended hybrid approach. And then we've got some that are attached to the remote offices, but also people that, honestly, 4, I guess, of people that work in any given state that aren't attached to an office. So really, it's changed a lot about how we do business, but it's really given us the flexibility. We'll talk a little bit about that as we get into questioning. So I'm originally from Southwest Iowa. I'm a Midwest girl, been here forever. I do not have 4 children at home. I have 2 dogs that are high maintenance. My kids are grown, so I'm in that empty nester part of life, but have 2 dogs and 3 grandchildren that I spend a lot of time with. So that is me.
Cool, cool. Well, welcome. Thank you for hanging out with us today. And Mary, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mary McWilliams. I'm the HR manager here at Oxbow Animal Health. We are a division of Companion Pet Products. We have every level of flexible work schedule you could imagine. Kind of like Liz was stating, we have offices across the US and overseas. So we're international now. So it does take a lot of patience with some flexible work schedules to make sure everybody's connecting, but we do get through it and pretty well. I too am from Omaha all my life, and I also have dogs and no children, so it fits well with my job here. We can bring our pets to work, so it works out great for us.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Oh, how did I miss that? I don't know where I missed that through all the years. Goodness.
they're usually upstairs.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh, that's really cool. Well, good. Well, we've got people on. Let's go ahead and dive into it. So, Liz, if I can start with you first, when we think about, you've already kind of given us a little bit of a picture of that diversity of the different types. So when you think about that flexibility in the workplace, what do you think is like that common theme that you can define that really kind of everyone falls under and how they're working together?
Well, I think, a couple things that we did when we had the opportunity was flexibility is key. I think, and it shows up a couple of different ways. So it's in hybrid, right? Where I choose to work. So at home, in the office, somewhere across the country, I can relocate, whatever, but it also means flexibility in schedule. So, and flexibility in PTO, as well, because quite frankly, that's something else that we switched. You'll hear people say it's unlimited. It's not unlimited. It's just flexible PTO. So essentially we're trying to meet people where they're at in their life. And I think that is a common theme of, I think, really what came out of COVID, not only because life changed, you have single parents with kids that maybe their aftercare was canceled, or they're caring for an elderly parent, or, there's a barrage of reasons, right? So I think what we really decided to, lock arms on and say, no matter what, we're going to make this work, is just being able to still get business done, but be able to be flexible for our people to be able to meet them where they're at. I think that really has been a critical piece of all of this. And it's less about hybrid work or, making that choice. It's more, how can we be flexible for our teammates to meet them where they're at? I think that's really been our common theme.
Okay, good. No, I like how you pulled that together with that flexibility really being the driver, not the hybrid or, the different buckets that you were talking about.
Right. Because that's what you'll hear people focus on, or, is it hybrid work? Well, it is, but that's not what drove the decision. What drove the decision was to be able to meet our employees where they're at, because if they have less stress at home, life is work and work is life. That's the reality of the world that we live in today, and more so even ever, right? And so I think if you can meet people where they're at in a way that's productive for the business, then, that's how you'll be successful in, employee engagement and all the things, right?
And I think when you lean into like what you've described, leaning into that may help a little bit with the perception of, well, they get to do this and they don't in some environments. I'm thinking of like both Mary and Ryan both have the part of their business obviously is falls in the manufacturing. So there's only so much flexibility a person in manufacturing can have. But I really like what you said there, because that really kind of makes it's very personal to each person's needs.
Yeah, because you can still be flexible. It just might look different, right?
Yeah. And people get into that, a lot of times it all looks the same, and it's not going to. So I really like that. Mary, how about you when thinking about Oxbow and that flexibility, because you do have the different environments based off of the type of work that's done. How would you describe your flexibility within your organization?
Yeah, we're still flexible with our manufacturing production areas. We still offer them a condensed work week, 4 days a week. We can give them flexible start and end times. There are core groups that work, the main hours, but we do still offer some flexibility there. Again, like Liz had talked about, we start at 6 a.m. So not all daycares are open at 6 a.m. We have to give people flexibility. But as far as that, we don't limit. We have the fully remote, the hybrid, the alternate schedules. We do job sharing. We have some part-time jobs. So yeah, we help people that are going to school, and we will let them change their work schedules so that they can attend school. Don't have to worry about, I have to be at work, I'm going to miss this. They can make their own schedules so that it fits around their schooling so they can get their education.
And tell us a little about the job sharing. What approach have you all taken with the job sharing?
Yeah, so we are, like I said, across several states. Our corporate office is in St. Louis. And so we do have some people that will take one part of a job, say it's our marketing. They'll take a certain project or a certain part of a project, and they'll be responsible for that. And then they work maybe part-time. So the other person will come in and pick up the other days of the week, and they'll both be working on the project. So it does create having to communicate quite a bit, but they share the job, they work their schedules part-time, and it seems to work out for them.
Good. I have not heard that one brought up in a while, actually. So
Yeah. And especially when you need, for instance, one of the places that I used to work, we did that with the receptionist position. That's probably the easiest one you could do that with. So yeah, if you want to make it work, typically you can make it work.
Good. Well, thank you. And Ryan, how about the dynamics there?
Yeah, I think they kind of mirror some of the things that both Liz and Mary said. It's more about meeting people where they are, and in conjunction with meeting where your business and our customer demands are. But it's we have in the manufacturing setting a little more structure on what that flexibility is in order to meet that. I mean, we have assembly lines and things like that. So, but we have multiple alternate schedules that people can have. We have 5x8s, 4x10s, 3x12, part-time, full-time. So within those structures, they have that flexibility. And so, like, for example, when we rolled out a 410 here in Omaha, if that didn't, for one of our facilities, if that didn't work for them, they still had the ability to choose a different schedule in Omaha that would. So I think that's the critical piece of giving them that flexibility for what they need today, and knowing that might change tomorrow, because we all know we're at the different phases that somebody's in life. If you have school age children, that 9 to 2 might work really well for them. But if once they're older, you might want to change that. And so I think it's keeping those lines of communication open between your employees, and that they have that trust that they can feel like they can, ask for, what they need, and you'll at least be able to hear them out and see how you can adjust. So we've tried to stay flexible within how we're flexible with our employees. So.
Good. Well, there's the multiple challenges when you have a production line per se, right? And it's got to be operating with people and having the people. So making those adjustments within the hours and giving that, really honing in again on that flexibility, I think is that key piece there. When we think about, so you've all transitioned to a certain degree into those different workplaces, or those different options, that flexibility. What would you say was what outside of the why behind it? I think a lot of us probably get the why. It's what have you seen as a result? What has the benefit been on providing that type of flexibility within an organization? Because it like Mary, you had said, it increases, obviously it increases communication, right? We're going to have to make sure we are doing certain things to ensure that people are on the same page. But what has the benefit been on the side of the, you know, I guess the impact on whether it's been retention, you know, what have you noticed in the last couple of years? I know some of this may have been maybe fairly, you know, within reason newer as well, but Ryan, is there anything particular that you've noticed as that benefit, or you've been getting the feedback from the employees?
Yeah, I think definitely turnover in areas. If because if you're not able to meet their need, they're going to leave, right? They're going to be able to find another employer that's going to be able to meet their need most likely. So definitely turnover. I think engagement. I know, you know, last year we rolled out an engagement survey, and we have spent a lot of time in the space of flexibility and offering different options, and, you know, that really focus on their well-being. And you know, so I think this second year that we've rolled out the engagement survey, we've seen significant improvements in those spaces. So you're seeing people that are employees that are more engaged, and therefore, you know, you're going to have higher productivity. So, and when you spend the amount of time that you do in training, and you know, the cost to get, you know, on board, and the investment you put in your employees, you know, the cost there alone to spend some time in that retention space of you know, being creative and how you can work with them is definitely well worth that investment, we found.
Definitely. Liz, how about you? Because I know in your world, you know, for a while there, you know, traveling nurses, you know, that whole field, everyone was remote. The dynamics of how you structured your organization create a competitive edge, maybe, or what are you noticing in regards to?
You know, I think a couple things. I think for us, I mean, Omaha is very competitive in this space. We have a lot of competitors here locally, and I think you know, for us to be able to recruit a diverse talent base. So even though we had the 7 offices, the ability to really find the right people for the right job, because the pool is much larger, right? So from a recruitment perspective, our ability to find talent, especially when we were having such rapid growth, was critical. So I think that's really helped us build a diverse workforce that maybe we didn't have as much before, just because, again, it's a limited pool. I think, you know, the other thing, there's some of these things that are both pros and cons. So I think, you know, the remote workspace isn't for everyone. And when you're starting to talk about mental health, and, you know, it kind of was fun in the beginning, and then people, as time goes on, it's just like, you know, really starting to be challenged of being at home. And so it's really gotten the right people that are at the company. So it's had some good turnover from the perspective of, like, you never want to lose good people, but you want people to be happy and fulfilled. So if they need to be in person with others, and they've made the decision to go somewhere where it's more mentally, you know, satisfying for them, I think that's a good thing. You know, they're not in an environment that doesn't feel conducive to who they are as a person. And so, you know, I think that's really helped us narrow down who we are as a company and what's important to us. And so I think that's been useful. And then connection would be another thing that I would say is both a pro and a con, because it really, like, when you're on a screen one-on-one with person, you know, you get invited to their home and you learn a little bit more about them. And it's, from a servant leadership perspective, it really does get to help you know someone on a deeper level that maybe you didn't get to know them in the office. But I think it's also challenging and draining as a leader, as most of us know, is that, you know, you really do. I mean, those walk bys, or the, you know, the water cooler talk, and those things that you miss, you have to be super intentional about it. And I think that's, you know, that's equally been a challenge, but it's also been a benefit in that it really does, you know, when you're one-on-one, you have to eliminate distractions. You can't be on your phone. You can't be doing other things. You've got to be, you know, tuned into the person that you're on the other side of the screen with. And I think that's a really good thing, because you can really get more deeply connected with your team. So, I mean, there's been a lot of benefits, but there's been a lot of challenges. So I think overall for our organization, I think we do cover 4 time zones. So I think the ability to be agile and to be able to cover a longer business day with a more diverse group of people has probably been the biggest benefit, in addition to, you know, meeting people where they're at.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because with having people in all 50 states, you're having people that are wanting to work those other hours Yeah, no, that is good. That is good for sure. And that the one thing you brought up with the pros and cons, right? That I bump into a lot is managers not feeling connected with their people and really struggling for those that do have the remote or even the hybrid. Maybe they're not in the office when their employee comes into the office. So it's that, that missing one another kind of scenario. And so then you're missing some opportunities to connect in person when that's an option too. So
Well, and it really did for me, for example, some of the people have worked for me for a long time and I just saw a different side of them. And so I really had to relearn my people and figure out what it is that they want. Like even the people local, I've got one employee that just said, can we do our one-on-ones in person? And, and I was so glad that she spoke up and said that because it was important to her and I wouldn't have otherwise known. So, I mean, you kind of have to re-understand who your people are and what's going to mean the most to them. So, but I think that's a good thing because I think sometimes we take for granted that, especially if we work with someone for a while, that we know who they are. And so it did, I know for me, it kept me on my toes and still continues to do so, of just making sure that I understand what their wants and needs are.
no, yeah, very good point. Very good point. Thank you for sharing. Mary, how about you? What are some things that you have noticed as an impact?
I think kind of to Ryan's point, it has built loyalty for the company. People appreciate the fact that, we're willing to meet them in the middle or help them with their work-life balance. So a lot of loyalty, our engagement survey has come through and shown that. I think it also has built, like you said, Liz, our managers, individual managers, have gotten some of the highest ratings now on their survey results that we've ever seen. So I think it really does. It makes you focus. It makes you concentrate on who this person is. What are they needing? What are they saying to me? Really being there for them. So those are the two things that I've really, as our organization, we've noticed. And again, that just builds more trust and mutual respect and morale. So those are definitely some of the positives that we have seen. And I know some organizations, a lot of work from home staff has given companies some cost savings. So, working from home has saved some organizations and the employees money, not driving to and from work. And so I think all around, it's been a benefit for everybody that we never really thought could happen.
So I'm curious, and Mary, and actually this question can go for anyone, but I'm curious for our audience if anyone's implemented any specific technology. I mean, outside of video conferencing, right? Any specific technology that has been helpful with having, whether it's full, that flexibility to remote to hybrid, but just any tools that has improved, made improvements or made life easier for people. And I'll just kind of, I don't know if you haven't, that's what I was gonna say, I'll just kind of lay it out there. And if anyone just take themselves off mute, perfect, Liz.
I can talk about a couple of things we've done. So from a like a hotel desking perspective of trying to keep people together, we've implemented Robin desking. And what Robin desking is it's like hotel software, right? So you reserve a desk. Part of the reason that we did it was because we wanted to try to keep people, in an area. If you want quiet space, you can go to quiet space. If you want an office, so you can pick your working environment that you want to choose. It also shows you who else is in the office and where they might be sitting. So if you are going into the office, or let's say you want to go into the office tomorrow, you can say, oh, Susie Smith is going to be in there and I really wanted to meet with them. So that's something that's been really beneficial for us to, just from a transparency perspective, and then giving people choices. They're not tied to a desk. And so we had everyone clean everything out. And then we've got some people that are in full time that have their own space, but others, we just give them flexibility and space. And so I think that's been helpful. We've done some, there's a software called Coffee Pals, And it is, it's integrated with Teams where you can, we're Microsoft company, so we use Teams for everything. And Teams, we've really started leveraging Teams over Zoom. But Coffee Pals is a kind of like a randomizer where you have a set group of defined people and it will match you up with someone, and it serves up some questions that you can ask just to force connection a little bit. And that's been really beneficial, like even in a work group or like I've, implemented in our diversity council or wellness champions of just trying to get people to get to know each other, because some people just get super comfortable. And so, they'll get a pop-up in their Teams channel to say, okay, we've served up questions for you this week, schedule a 15-minute and have these conversations. And it strongly encourages people to do it, and they do it. So I think that's been really beneficial. And then the last thing we've been trying recently is a software called Kumo Space. And so what you can do is you can replicate or create a space that where you have your own little avatar, and like you can walk into a conference room and you can talk to just the people in the conference room online, or you can, be hanging out at the lounge, you can play chess, you can, do like all sorts of online activities based on how you're feeling that day and who else is in the Kumo space. And so that's been something that's just, again, for the techie people that like the gamification, that want to connect, it's not for everybody, but, there's many people that really enjoy it. And I think the other thing, it's a technology that we use a recognition software that has an app associated with it. It's Amped out of Lincoln, but we've branded it ourselves. But we've really noticed an increase in recognition, and there's like little polls and things that you can do in there. So we've increased the interaction on our recognition platform to not only build connections, but to encourage recognition of, what gets praised gets repeated. So if we can just continue to recognize each other, we've really seen that amplify during COVID, and even post. I mean, obviously we're 3 years past it. So I'd say those are, I don't know that I was fully ever bought into recognition software. I mean, I knew it was necessary, right? And it was nice to have. And it's almost to the point now where it's a need to have, because I feel like, especially in where we're at, I've really seen an increase in usage because you can't see someone in the hall and give them a high five. And so it's just really important to ensure that we're giving people recognition. So those are some of the things that we've been using that have helped support the environment we're working in.
Those are all great. All great. Was that last one you said AMP?
Amped, AMPT. So they're a software company based out of Lincoln.
Okay. No, those are all very helpful, because that recognition is something that I would say with your surveys, that usually shows pretty high that we're still not getting enough, right? And being able to add those out there, and as we continue to, I would say, as you were recruiting that Gen Z, that younger generation who's grown up on pretty much technology for the most part, right?
Yeah. And I do think we use Blend for our employee engagement survey. And we have been focusing on, they were just recently purchased by Microsoft, which I think is a great thing, because there's going to be integration with Teams and other things. But like the pulse surveys, I think is something that we've increased as well. And I'm sure you have seen that too, of just like the 1-year engagement survey just feels like it's just too much time in between. And so, do we want to do a full on, more than once a year? They would tell you to do it 4 times a year. I think that's a little much, but I do think doing little small pulse surveys in between is super important. We can use our recognition platform for that, or we can use Glint if we want it to be anonymous. And so I think that's something else that we just changed on how we use something that we were already using, which is Glint. So.
Oh, that is exciting. You're right that Microsoft acquired, because we very well could easily be seeing something come out as part of our systems that we're already using in a lot of environments. So no, very helpful. That is awesome. Ryan or Mary, is there anything that you can think of adding on with that?
Yeah, we don't compete with that.
No, there was a lot of great things on there. I know.
It's not a
That's
competition.
awesome.
It's just-
We're going to steal some of that.
the only thing I would add is we probably at the start of COVID, we were kind of going through like a technical transformation organizationally to move across. We were pretty far back on some of our technology platforms. So I would say as we've gone through that, our focus has really been on what are the barriers to current roles for them being more remote or more hybrid, and trying to tackle those. So we have those even within HR with some of our paper files that we have. So we're in the process of looking at different systems that will eliminate that then in turn gives us more flexibility. So having those conversations with managers in other areas to say, well, why couldn't this be? And see, there are going to be jobs that, we're manufacturing that flexibility isn't going to be remote because they're a people leader and they're managing a paint line. But if the barrier is technology, then how do we work through that? And I think we've had quite a few things that we've implemented that have allowed for more flexibility specific to where they work.
Yeah, no, that is great. That is great, Brian, that you brought that up, because getting people having those conversations and really having the conversation with the individuals in those areas, because you're right. If it's the technology piece, there's the possibilities that we can do something that's going to help really engage the workforce a little differently. That would be something that would be more of that proactive to invest into looking into, for sure.
Well, and I think Liz made the point earlier too about just opening up where you can recruit then for those roles. And I know we've had, there's some real challenging roles that we have on the technical side that you don't have as great of a applicant pool to go to here locally. So having that ability to go outside of local where they have to be in is essential to be able to diversify your applicant pool that you're searching for. So certainly.
Definitely. Mary, was there anything else that you might have had?
Nothing that I can think of really. We did actually put new technologies out there and did do some upgrades with some of the systems that we had, and we're still continuing to do that, but nothing as great and wonderful as what Liz has at her operation.
But I think that's a really great point. I love what you said, Ryan, because I think, for the people that at times struggle with change and like it can't be done versus how it can be done, I think that openness to say, why can it be done? I mean, because we have been forced to do it. And I think the efficiencies we've gained, all of us, I'm sure, because we were forced to do it. I mean, we had 0 remote employees at CNA when this happened. And it was just like, oh my God, how are we ever going to do it? Like, we were at Nebraska Furniture Mart trying to buy laptops. We didn't have laptops. It was crazy. And to think like that was just 4 years ago and how far we've come. But I mean, it was really forcing people to think differently. It's more of like inside the box, like, okay, this is our parameters. This is what we can do. What can we do? And I think that has made us all better. And I think, that forcing us to think differently. And I see it show up in so many other places. People like, why couldn't we do it? We did this and we never thought we could. So I think just that openness to thinking that, I think that's an understated, tremendous asset that we've gained, as a result of all this. I mean, that's, in fact, I should have thought of that earlier. That's a really good point.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a great point, and continuing to challenge the way we think as a result, right? So we may be back, we may be or partial, but it's like, okay, well, how do we continue down this path? And not to say that it has to be 100%, but how do we continue to make those improvements and putting that actually some of that problem solving a little bit in the hands of the people who do the work? Really get some generate ideas and challenge them to think differently too. And they're going to have I would say a much greater involvement or caring about it because it's about their position or about what they do or future possibilities of what they do. So we have a question that is in chat that I want to put out there. And I've been hearing this as well. Shelley from Midland Scientific had asked, she had asked that she's hearing, companies that are starting to announce that they're going back to the office. And I've been hearing that. I think Liz, you and I might've talked about that a little bit. and I don't believe the three of you are, but correct me if I'm wrong, has anyone experienced this yet? And maybe if you haven't experienced it, maybe do you know someone who's experienced it? So I want to kind of put that phrase out there two different ways. And if so, how had that been rolled out?
Yeah, we actually did that. We implemented back to the office. Oh gosh, I think it was the 1st of April. So yeah, everybody was remote except obviously our production manufacturing areas. At first it was like, whoa, wait, why do we have to do this? We like working from home every day. But we have a new CEO and he really wanted to see more collaboration on site with your teams. He wanted to see quicker coming to conclusions and having those crazy brainstorming meetings and whatnot. So we did it very cautiously. We did tell people it was coming. We gave them the information. We let them process it. We held meetings. We let them ask all the questions they wanted. We made sure that we were all set up internally so that we had space for people to come back in. And we did say, if you don't want to come back in, please let us know. Tell us why you don't want to come back in. And then we'll evaluate every situation and see how that works for everybody. We did have a few, not many, maybe just a handful across the organization. And then we actually basically held a whole week of party back to the office. So welcome back, donuts, coffee, lunches, game days, trivia day. I mean, we just really made it special for everybody to come back in, get to know each other again, meet the new faces of the people you've never really met face to face before. And honestly, it's been fine. We really haven't had any issues with people. Honestly, I think they're coming back even more than 2 or 3 days a week. Some you see here every day. So it worked out really well for us.
Okay. And so Mary, tell me, when you said the comeback, was it come back full time, or what I just heard at the very end was it sounds like there's still that flexibility in there, but at some they want a percentage of your time in the office.
Yeah, they wanted people back 3 days a week. So you could pick your days. But we wanted you here 3 days a week, and they really wanted people on Wednesdays. So that would be the one day, at least everybody would be here and we would know that. Honestly, everybody picked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so they could have their Monday and Fridays at home. Well expected, and that's fine. But with that, our new CEO also said he doesn't want meetings on Fridays. He wants that time for his people. If you need to catch up, if you just need quiet time, no meetings on Fridays. So he understands how important it is for people to have their time and their flexibility to do their work.
Hi, Mary. Thank you for bringing up the no Fridays. I was going to nudge you if you didn't, because I agree 100%. I think that is a great policy.
Yeah. And there's extreme circumstances, but it's rare. And leadership has to set that pace. And for the most part, most of them do.
Yes, yes. And I would say different companies that I'm having conversations working with, they've been leaning towards a common day. Everyone's there, whether it's the whole company or teams or departments, however you want to break it out. So, and that day has been identified more so as this is when we schedule our meetings as much as we can in person to really be able to collaborate in a different way than what we were doing with some on Zoom or whatever your video conferencing is, and some not, right? And they're finding those meetings to be a little more productive. So I have, as a follow-up with that, Mary, I have seen that too. Liz or Ryan, have you guys bumped into that internally, or aware someone that that's been working through that?
We have not. I mean, we've basically committed to we're not going to request it. I have talked to a couple of people. In fact, my daughter that's in Chicago, they're required to be in the office 2 days a week. And, you know, it's a commute. I mean, you have to plan differently. You have to, you know, your whole day is different. And I think you have more of an awareness. I mean, I commuted for 20 years, and once I realized how much time and effort and all that it was going into community, I was like, oh my gosh, I really have to plan for that. And I think, you know, what I've heard, as long as it is similar to what Mary is saying, as long as it comes with some flexibility and that I don't lose flexibility. I mean, I can give to get. So if I have to be in the office Wednesdays or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever those days are, that's where I've heard it's gone over well. And Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I mean, I get data all the time from our Robin software, just, you know, even in North America, those are the days that people want to work, and they want their Mondays and Fridays. And so I think as long as it's not mandated on a Monday and a Friday, and as long as you've got flexibility, and as long as you give a good why and people see the benefits, because the good things I've heard is, you know what, I really miss seeing people in person, and I just forgot how good it feels. I forgot how productive I can be. So I've heard more good than I have bad, as long as it's with the flexibility and on days, and I can still go, you know, watch my daughter's dance recital if I want to. You know, I think as long as it comes with that, I think what I've heard has been positive.
Good, good. I would agree with you for sure. Ryan.
Yeah, not a ton additional to add. I mean, we were a bit unique because even during COVID, there was a decent amount that was here every day supporting the plant and manufacturing side. And then we had a component that was hybrid, and then we had the group that was 100% remote. So I think, you know, we've definitely made that transition back in terms of where we've identified which roles are going to be 100% remote. Sometimes that evolves based on the individual's needs and if they can be performed. But again, having those conversations when we did transition back of the why behind why they may need to be, and some of those we did decide, you know, could be 100% remote for the most part, maybe coming in for different, you know, meetings or events that we have that are more critical but don't happen on a routine basis, giving them that flexibility to set their schedule, but ensuring we have appropriate coverage. I have heard a lot about being intentional about when people are in the office, so you do get the most out of that collaboration. Because I've heard of other organizations where they show up and nobody's there. So you're like, what's the point of me being here? If no one's here, you're not really gaining that, what you're trying to certainly achieve. So I think, yeah, being intentional about when people are in the office and having that, if that's a meeting day, or for us, some of that's based on coverage, because we still have quite a bit of like foot traffic because our manufacturing employees are here every day. So from an HR perspective, you know, we want to make sure that we have enough people here that, you know, somebody is able to, you know, answer benefit questions or do some of those things, help those individuals. So there's some, you know, logistics that we work on from that perspective, but we didn't really get a tremendous amount of pushback unless there was a real need for them to be. And I think in those cases, unless there was a significant business need, they remained 100% remote.
Yeah, no, that's Shelley, thank you for asking. Hopefully that helps a little, because I know I've been hearing that bubble up as well, where there's been some scatter, some people or organizations talking about that. And I think, you know, similar to some organizations, they've identified this is how we're going to stay, right? And I know when people are being interviewed, that tends to be a common question that people are asking too. Is this the final decision? Are you guys are you still on hold to decide this at a later time? Which I think could obviously make it more difficult for that recruiting process versus helping it be easier. One other question that kind of gets into that development of your people. Has there been anything specific that you're doing different with developing your managers or people because of flexibility or because of remote, that blend? How has that dynamic changed maybe a little bit compared to what it was pre-COVID? I mean,
for me, I don't know. It's changed a bit, but but not necessarily the fundamental. I would say the focus is always on that relationship, right? Having those one-on-ones and how much you can gain from having that, and having a true understanding and that open communication and trust between your people leader, the people leader and their employee. And it comes down to good performance management too. I mean, I feel like pre-COVID, there was this, misconception that you aren't able to effectively manage somebody's work if I can't see that they clocked in at 8 o'clock and they're clocking out at 5 o'clock. And it really, so shifting that mindset, we spent, some time, I think, because of COVID, it just accelerated it. And I think those kind of went away and they realized they can manage it. But I think we spend a lot of time in our leadership training focused on that employee and supervisor relationship and everything that can come from that and those one-on-ones. And I think this is one aspect certainly that benefits, understanding their needs as an employee. So I'd say that foundation was there, but I think we have a higher focus on that. And being intentional about how you're communicating as well, I think is the other piece. I know for me, with having employee, like I'm in the office, as I mentioned, and then I have some employees that are hybrid. I have, some that are fully remote. I really have to be intentional about how I'm communicating with each of them, because it is so much easier to build that relationship and walk by and have those conversations. But I found myself at the onset of when we were shifting that, that wasn't as natural because I'm here. So I think that's the other piece of making sure that with those different, schedules and, working at different locations, that you really have to be intentional about how you're having those one-on-ones and ensuring that communication is there, because they can feel when it's a mix that they're a little bit separated from what's going on organizationally. So those are some things that we focus on.
Good. Mary or Liz?
I think this is probably something we're still struggling with and we're still trying to figure out. And that is how, it's the compassion and empathy and accountability. Like, how do you do both? And it feels like there's this belief that you can't do them both, right? And so I think it's the re-education on what does it mean to care about someone. So, we're not here to be caregivers, right? So like if you're a caregiver, you're here to like support and do everything for them. But if you care about someone, it's really, sometimes having the hard conversation or telling them they're just not cutting it and they need to increase their activity or they need to eliminate distractions or whatever that is. And, we were so busy when all of this hit and then like when things started slowing down, it was like, well, the market's starting to contract and we don't have the accountability. And so I think, and I still don't think we figured it out, completely. I think we're having a lot of conversations about it, but it's a real gap, of understanding that you've got to do both. And when you care about someone, you're not here to be a caregiver. That caring about sometimes is pushing them to get uncomfortable, to pushing them to, to maybe come into the office if they're distracted at home or whatever those cases, it's just having those tough conversations and for the good of them to develop or grow or meet their goals, whatever that is. And so I think that's probably the largest thing I would say, like, the gap that I'm seeing and still probably somewhat struggling to figure out, like, because each leader is a little bit different on how they sit. You kind of got the old school beliefs and then you've got the ones where it's like, no, we've just got to let them do what they want. And no, we've got to meet somewhere in between. So I think that's probably our biggest struggle.
Yeah. And I believe it is that caring and not crossing that line. Like you talk about care, I like you use that word caregiver, because as a manager, we're not doing that, but we need to care about them and really with the goal of helping them perform, right? Helping them do really well, be confident, be knowledgeable, and feel good about what they do. And when they are falling behind, we do need to have that conversation. I think a big piece of it is it's how we have the conversation and also timeliness too, right? If we wait too long, then it becomes a habit or it becomes something that now becomes more difficult to talk about. And then when you get into that manager role, though, some managers oh, they get the heartburn, I'm going to say, when they feel they have to have that uncomfortable conversation. And it's like, is it that a mindset? Is it, is it uncomfortable, or is it, I'm helping you, right? I think there's a little bit of that trying to navigate through those waters as well. So, yeah, which isn't, I'm going to say new when COVID came. I think that's
Right.
been, right. That's been
I
something.
think it's just magnified more, I think, really,
Yes.
honestly. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And kind of Ryan, going back to you, it goes back to managing results, which is what we should have been doing in the first place, versus managing, micromanaging, right? It's what are we doing to help ensure they understand the results, and providing them the resources they need to be successful. And feedback is one of those resources to help them be successful. So, Mary, how about yourself?
I don't have a lot to add to that at all, but we do, when our managers are first hired during their onboarding, we do spend the HR business partner or manager spends time with them, going through an overview of how to be successful with remote teams. So we do start those conversations so they at least think about it. And then, we follow up with them probably after 30 days and just kind of have those conversations with them. We honestly, with all of our new hires, we do have IT meet with them day one, especially if they are remote. If they're in the office, they still get that special touch, so that they know what systems are available, how to use them. If you don't know how to use a system, how can you communicate effectively with your people, right? Or anyone else for that matter. So we do try to start from day one from the onboarding side.
Good. And I'm just going to check here real quick. I believe Shelley was the one that had the main question that they came out from the audience. So,
one thing I will add, I was just thinking about what you said, Mary, because one thing we just started it in January, was we stripped out. So we have new employee orientation, right? That every employee goes through, regardless if you're a leader or not. But then we did add a new leader onboarding, that is after they've gone through. So we do it like the first Tuesday of every month, regardless if it's a promotion, transfer outside the organization, to go through those very basic fundamentals. And it's a time commitment. It's like 6 hours, but that's not something that we did before, and maybe we should have been doing. But I think more importantly now than ever, I think that was something that we started to do too, of just, again, so they know who to go to in tech, who do they go to, and HR, all of those types of things, because it just gets lost, it felt like. And so I would agree with you. And I think, we kind of just stumbled across that. I wish we would have had some great insightful information that led us to that decision, but it's great to hear you say that, because I'm like, okay, maybe that was the right thing to do. Because it does seem to help, making sure we're super intentional about it, which we've talked about.
Yeah. Well, and I'd say too, Liz, with your different platforms that you had shared with us, it's getting them, especially if they're new, but these are the different ways to communicate. This is why we use these. These are, how to encourage your employees, kind of scenario. So it's not assuming. I think email is a platform that we all assume when people start in our business, they know how to do an email. It's not always the best etiquette at times, but we make that assumption. But with all the other different, depending on what you're introducing and providing for your employees to use, making sure they understand why we're doing it and how to navigate through it. And also, what are we doing with that information at times as well? When we are sending out, pushing some feedback or pushing the little pulse surveys, getting some of that information, making sure we're having people creating that awareness of what's happening with it. So, well, good. So now, as it's just to kind of wrap things up, what I'm hearing, at least from the three of you guys, is when we think about that future of workplace flexibility, it definitely sounds as if you all are moving still in that direction of really prioritizing the flexibility part, maybe moving away from referring to hybrid or full remote. I mean, that might be those different buckets, right? But really taking that stronger focus on the flexibility and for the individuals, and what are we doing to help meet all their needs? And these are all the different resources and all the different options that we have implemented or have available that we can work within. So whether I'm an individual contributor or I'm that manager, if I'm that manager of an individual contributor that's really struggling, you have provided them with options. These are different things that we can do. It's just helping that manager make sure they're having those conversations. And definitely standing out too is those one-on-ones that you guys mentioned as well. Liz, you talked about, having one-on-ones personally, and Ryan, you've talked about, definitely brought up the concept of making sure that we're focusing on those one-on-ones, and the benefit, Liz, you talked about is having them is you're definitely noticing I have to be more engaged. It's allowing me to get to meet people better. And one-on-ones is I would say it's probably your number one tool when it comes to working with your people, is making sure we're taking that time to connect, getting to know them, understand what's going on in their world. What are their struggles? What are those things that they're working through? And what are those things in a caring way, not to solve their problems, but how do we have options to help, right? If we don't know, we can't do anything about it. So really taking that time to be intentional, to have those real sincere one-on-ones. And I'd be willing to bet too, when we think about people that are doing them in a workspace environment versus online, you probably get less interruptions for that virtual, right? I could see real value in that piece of it. So, well, I want to thank the panel. Thank you guys so much for sharing the valuable resource, and for our audience. Hopefully, there's going to be a couple things, at least one thing that you can take away today and go back into your work environment and talk about how you might apply it. Continue to challenge yourself, Ryan, like Ryan had brought up, in the sense of why, as we move forward, why can't we do it differently? What are those things that, right now cause us to have to be in office? How do we look at and reorganize things that are going to give us flexibility for whatever reason? Because that flexibility doesn't actually mean it's because we're going to make a person go remote. That flexibility could be in situations arise that are unexpected. We're going to be a little more prepared, that we're able to respond more proactively in some stressful situations versus reacting. So, I think there was a lot of really good takeaways. So I want to thank everyone. And as we move forward, everyone have a great rest of your afternoon, and rest of, we're going to be going in July. Whereas June is wrapping up. I can't believe it. So thank you, everyone, and everyone take care.
Thanks so much. All right.
Thank
bye-bye.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.